We have a dog here at the house. We got a dog right after we did the fundraiser, and we have a bearded dragon lizard on top of that. And it's funny in the house because they'll like chase after each other. Well, this morning the lizard got out of the house and almost like got stuck on the deck. So we have a deck, Laura, and then the deck has there's a building in front of us, so we share that. The deck shares the roof basically of this building in front. So I had to climb over the railing of our deck, and this lizard blends in with the leaves, and there's leaves all over our deck because of the storm. And I see it in the corner with its eyes like bugged out, just like terrified. So anyways, I brought it inside, and Dustin's like, "How's your morning going?" I'm like, "Well, it was interesting."
It's adventure for sure.
What did the lizard think about all this rain? Did it like it?
Oh, hated it.
Oh,
because they're dry.
They're dry.
Yep, and they thrive off of UV light. So he was like cold. You know, a crow could easily come down and swoop him up, but none of that happened.
Right. I imagine it's like the final scene of the Bodyguard where Kevin Costner, where Kevin Costner takes Whitney Houston just like away from the crazy. You just like swoop up Abyss, and you're like,
yeah, pretty much.
And
he batted his eyes at me.
What is the lizard's name?
So my son is into Dungeons and Dragons, and
cool.
When we first got into it, there's a name generator. If you type in attributes on this website for your D&D character, they'll come up with a name for you. So Bodhi's like, oh, he's a lizard, and he shoots a bow and arrow, and he's brave, and the name came up Abyss. So that's the name.
Fantastic. I love that.
Yeah. So he named the lizard. I named the dog. The rest is history. So.
And what's the dog's name?
Fozzie, because Fozzie Bear.
Yes.
Because she's a big ball of fur. So
sweet.
But let's do this. Okay. Thank you, by the way. We'll do like an actual intro, and now I guess.
I just feel like when we candidly come in and we just start talking about lizards, isn't that more fun?
It is.
I don't know. Maybe not for you, Laura. I don't know.
It's more like real life. I mean,
you're right.
It is.
Guys, it's like we're almost family. It's like you've done super amount of fundraising for us and for Wheels for Humanity. You're like, Matt is like your brother. I mean, we're like family.
Well,
it is.
I was joking with him and not joking because I said, we cannot wait.
Sweet Kane.
We cannot
got the mug.
We cannot wait to have you on our show. And he's like, well, I said, this could be the best episode ever. And he goes, wait, best episode ever?
Yeah.
No, he's
Sorry,
right.
Matt.
She's really not that great. So you didn't really.
I thought he'd be mugging, trying to get in here like, hey, can I move in on your interview?
He is going to bomb us at some point. I told him to bomb us because it's cute.
Yes. It's adorable. It's adorable. And for anybody that might not be familiar, you are married to Matt Adler, our good friend Matt. Matt has been on our show. Yes, Rick Kane from the North Shore. Matt has been on our show, I feel like at least 3 times now. Yes. He is objectively, I would say, our favorite. No offense to any other guests, but part of the reason is that candid, just ease of speech. We're just talking with each other, and Matt feels like somebody we've known a very long time, and so we're thrilled to have you on as well for a proper sit down, quote unquote.
Super. Love it.
It's an honor, sincerely, because we're obviously big fans of your career. And just when we had you on for our fundraiser, clearly that was, the focus was Momentum Wheels for Humanity, which if no one knows about that, go to our Instagram page for more information. Actually, there's a link in the bio for this. But, before we get into any of your career stuff, how did you get set up with Momentum Wheels for Humanity?
Well, it started out, we had some extra old wheelchair equipment that my son had grown out of. And so we were trying to figure out what to do with it. And we heard about Wheels for Humanity. And at that time, they used to get planes donated, and they would fill the plane, a cargo plane, with anything that they could get.
Wow.
Wheelchairs, bath chairs. We even put in old clothing, my son's old clothing, and they would take these refurbished wheelchairs and they would fly them around the world.
So wow.
And so there was a big warehouse in, I believe, North Hollywood, and Matt would go there. He would refurbish wheelchairs. We would bring all our equipment over there. And after quite some time, the realization was that they would fly over with seating specialists and physical therapists and fit children and adults in chairs. But these kinds of chairs are kind of first world chairs, are not great for places like Indonesia, where it's not all paved. It's not all smooth terrain. So what happened was there was a shift in the leadership of the organization, and what they started to do was design and manufacture their own wheelchairs. So they partnered with a company in Indonesia, started to build the chairs, and actually had a warehouse where people who happened to use chairs were putting chairs together. So they were also employing people who used wheelchairs. So that's kind of the evolution of the organization. And now it has grown. It is its reach is more than just dropping off chairs and hoping you're okay. There's therapeutic units and a therapy unit, training for therapists, a lot of support brought into the different countries.
That's amazing.
That's totally incredible. And also another reminder is that back in September of last year, we had our 3-year anniversary. We had a fundraiser for Momentum Wheels for Humanity, and our link is still active. So if you are compelled to donate, the link is in our show notes.
Yeah, and I think Matt's going to do an auction pretty soon with some paintings. So
I love that.
There's new activity happening.
Cool.
Also, the other thing that I wanted to say was there's also a research project, quite a large grant that Wheels is a part of, where they're doing research on how that person's mobility really affects the community. So it's really a wide-reaching program that really touches from the therapeutic aspect to the chairs to that influence, how that influences the community, not just the person's life and their family, but the community.
That's really great, because I think oftentimes, I think one of the reasons Dustin and I wanted to work with you guys and do this and have it, our anniversary be a fundraiser, was because this is a population that often gets overlooked or forgotten about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And especially in different parts of the world. I mean, tough enough here, but if it's not part of the health system to have a chair in the country where you live, it's really difficult. So that's the other thing that they try to do, is really influence the government and the health systems and sell wheelchairs to the government and the health systems so that it becomes more a part of the infrastructure of medical care.
Amazing.
When I was a teacher, I used to have students that had difficulty holding a pencil, right, for their grip. And then they came out with this really cool, I don't know who came out with them, these cool pencil grips that just contour to your fingers. And the difference that that little thing made to that 5-year-old and brought, that excitement to write or draw finally, because they can hold a pencil, they can feel confident in the way they hold the pencil, versus gripping it, whatever. It's like that little thing was such a big thing for that child. So you think about every little thing in life, if it doesn't affect you, just to think about, it could have a huge effect on someone else. So I love this grant idea of like what happens moving forward. That's a really beautiful thing.
Yeah.
We I think it was earlier in the year, no, around the same time, right after we did the fundraiser, we went live on Instagram, and we had a former guest on our show, Nestor Serrano, who suddenly just happened to be on Instagram at the time. And he goes, "Oh, I'm on the board of Momentum as well," which is kind of a fun roundabout way. And so we're like, wait, you're a part of the show? So, now we're in 2023. We will do another anniversary show later this year and another fundraiser for sure. So maybe we can, it's just only going to get bigger and bigger as time goes on.
Super.
Love it. So, hey, how did you and Matt meet?
We actually met through mutual friends when I came to Los Angeles in 1989. And we were both dating other people. Then we both got married to other people. And then we both got divorced from other people.
Happens.
It's a long road. For some of us, it's a very long road. We had been friends. And then he used to come over with his girlfriend, actually, and help me with Mason after I was divorced. And then they broke up, and he used to come over like once a week, help me with Mason, and we would hang out and talk, because we obviously had a lot of in common, and a lot of emotional stuff that we were going through, and a lot of personal journey stuff that we were going through.
Yeah.
And so we were just friends, and then all of a sudden we weren't. And we thought, oh, if this goes bad, we're going to lose our friendship. But luckily, it's held as a pretty good rebound relationship.
No kidding. How many years have you guys been married?
We were married in 2005, so that's almost 20 years.
Yeah, right? My gosh.
Yeah. So
right,
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
89's that's when you came out to LA.
Yes, I came out in 89 for a screening of Sex, Lies, and then I just started working, and I just stayed.
You were obviously working prior to that in New York, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, in little like staged readings, and then little tiny off-Broadway shows, and then off-Broadway shows that my friends and I produced in art galleries, and then a more commercial off-Broadway run, and then a couple of little episodes here and there of things, and then sort of things changed a little bit.
Well, what inspired you to become an actor?
Well, in high school, I decided to take a drama class, and I don't even know why. And I started working on scenes, and I really loved it. I really loved telling the story. I wanted to be in the story. And that's how it all started. I think I was always being there's a recording of me when I was about 4 telling the elaborate story of Cinderella. And I think that was
amazing.
Just, kind of, maybe it's in you or it's not in you. But for me, when I listen to that, it is just so cute and so sweet, and how I was very dramatic about the way that I told it. So maybe it was just always a little bit in me to be loud-mouthed.
And certainly not a coincidence that you're arguably your most well-known line in Pretty Woman.
Yeah,
interesting, fucking Cinderella.
Right?
Interesting.
Yeah.
I just want to know who it works out for. You give me one example of somebody that we know that it happened
Name
for.
someone?
Yeah,
you want
one
me to
person that
name
it worked
someone?
out
You want me
for.
to give you a name or
Yeah,
something?
I'd like a name.
Oh God, the pressure of a name. Cinderfucking-rella.
Yeah, I was wondering if at 4 you were telling the story to whomever you're speaking to. And so there's this hooker in Hollywood.
The cutest part of that tape, and the part that I remember the most from listening to it, not from telling it,
yeah,
is And she run down, 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 run. And she lost her glass slipper.
That's amazing.
Run down, run down, run.
She run and run.
Very sweet.
I mean,
Oh,
you
I
don't
love
just lose it from one running, to be clear. You got to do a lot of rundin.
Yes.
Rundin.
Yes.
Yeah, they're not isotoners. You gotta, you know. And there's a lot of what is it called when you put the holes in the ground? You're aerating the grass or whatever.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of that going on. So you're working in New York, and I mean, you know, our history with you goes back to Crime Story and Miami Vice and stuff like that. Because Crime Story is a really great television series. It was a great television series.
Oh, we loved it, didn't we?
Yeah.
We were all hooked on it. It was so great. What an amazing cast.
Phenomenal. I think it oftentimes gets overlooked because Miami Vice was around the same time, and Michael Mann had produced both. Mm-hmm. But Dennis Farina, obviously, you know, is just tremendous. And it's a one-off that you did the show, but still, it must have been a fun experience.
It was so fantastic because there was this show that I loved, and then I got to go and do it, and they were all so sweet and generous to me. I'm sitting at a table with the guys in a restaurant, and I said, I don't know what continuity means. And this was just like, just do it. Don't think about it. Just do it. Just be yourself. It's all going to be fine. And I didn't know anything. I didn't know what a mark was. So I'm walking through this parking lot very early on in the shoot, and I'm not hitting my marks, and the director's freaking out. And it was just such a mess. but it was
so much for fondness.
There's no you know, I didn't go to school. I didn't learn any of that kind of stuff. I went to school and I was, you know, trained in acting and the stage, and I didn't learn any of that stuff. And so I didn't know what any of it meant. And so I had to learn on my feet in high heels and a wig.
Best way to learn.
And for television, which is a whole other animal next to making a movie.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Did you prefer stage prior to that, where you're like, I just want to be back on the stage again?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was all, you know, pretty intriguing, and I did a lot on stage, so I understood that.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to continue to do that and learn that. And I loved working on new plays, which is something you get to do when you're a young actor in New York, do stage readings of new plays. So you read a lot of new material. And but I was, of course, really intrigued by doing television and film. It's also a way to make a living.
Yep.
You know, so I was really interested in what that was. And so I like both of them. There's nothing like the feeling of being in front of an audience and exchanging that energy and feeling the energy change in the room because of something that is happening to you.
Yeah.
But then again, there's also nothing like the magic of that feeling that is so intimate. I mean, they can both be very intimate. It's different, and yet it's the same. If there is that magic kind of goosebump moment, you can have it in, you know, in a large theater, in a small theater, around a table in our pool house. We just did a reading of a new play at our house, and
oh, nice.
It was lovely. It was the same kind of, you know, wherever that magic is, that's just what's the super fun part.
Are you looking to do another play here in LA then? Potentially?
I'm not looking, but you know, that's a kind of hard mommy job. So through my career as a mom, I didn't really want to do plays, really. I needed to be home at night.
Yeah.
You just need to, for me, I needed to be there at night. So
I can relate to that.
Yeah, if something happens, if something came up now, it could be a different story.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're in New York, and then you come out to LA.
Mm-hmm.
and you said you never turned back, right? What was it about LA that hooked you in once you got here? Was it just the work, or was it more than that?
Well, it was definitely the work. I have to say, it's really interesting. When we did this reading the other night at our house, there were 3 people there that had just recently moved to Los Angeles. And usually there's a lot of LA bashing. And we talked about that, but especially when you come from New York or London, as one of those persons did. And they're such vibrant and creative, and the city's hubs of creativity.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
And I had shared that when I came to Los Angeles, one of the first times I came, I felt like this invisible coat was lifted off my shoulders. And 3 of them said, "Oh my gosh, it's so interesting that you say that," because they all had a different sensation, but they all described like one of them described, "I felt like something inside my body changed." So there's this, I guess, resonance of where we're supposed to be. I don't know how else we can figure out where we're supposed to be other than the straight logistics of what's happening in our lives. But it was interesting that all of us explained a slight shift inside of us that acknowledged that maybe this is the place to be. And then we talked about they were finding a really generous and warm creative community here. People really wanting to take risks, go outside the box, collaborate. Now, I'm sure that you can find that really anywhere, but other than this week, it's also a pretty great place to live.
Right. Really.
As far as getting around, the traffic is terrible, but other than that, there is a lightness because that also comes from the weather.
Yes.
I mean, it definitely helps.
Currently downpouring this week in LA.
Yes.
Flood warnings everywhere. Yeah.
Currently a travel advisory for water.
For water.
Yeah. No, but you're right. You're right. There is something about, you can find negatives in every city you go to. You really can. Maybe in Los Angeles, I always tell my wife, I say, well, there's 18 million people in Los Angeles. That means there's that many more people that are going to be kind and not so kind. You know, you're just going to be surrounded by more of everything. And you make the most of what you want. I feel like it's a very much an artist city across the board as far as creatively, as far as creative is concerned, right? But it just thinks, I think back to when you came down here in the 80s, or over here, I guess. And it's such a different time. And you had just finished Sex, Lies and Videotape, and you're making your next move as Pretty Woman, right? And that's got to be like, that's a major tonal shift.
Are we not going to talk about Sex, Lies and Videotape at all?
We should.
I feel like it's a pivotal movie when you think about independent film and
truly
Soderbergh's first movie. Mm-hmm. So I'm certainly quite curious. And was that not your first feature as well, technically, or?
Yes.
Yes. So like 2 major firsts leading up to what would become the independent film movement of the 90s.
Yes.
And that film is obviously a fantastic movie, won a lot of awards. I would love to hear about, you really are jumping into the deep end.
Mm-hmm. It was my first film. It was a really unique experience. Steven was really great. There was quite a bit of rewriting, which I had been reminded of years later, and how fraught that was, but for him. But it was all like really fun and groovy for me. And he's such a good director, and he was such a good director then, that it felt like a really positive experience. at the time. I remember there were dailies that were shipped to Louisiana, and Steven watched them in a high school cafeteria or school cafeteria with no sound. There was no sound available. And I remember watching the first day of dailies, which was Andy's scene with Ron Vaughter, such a beautiful human being. And it was Andy's, that was one of the first things she shot. And I watched her for like 5 takes in a row blush on cue. And I thought, this is going to be really different than people think it's going to be.
Yes.
She's going to knock everybody's socks off.
And she did.
She did.
And she did. But we're talking, I mean, Soderbergh at the time, I think he was like 26 or something, right? So like this is, and he's always been a guy who has a very clear vision, right? You never felt like, oh, I don't know what this is going to be. No,
that's exactly right. And because, well, it's because of who he is, right? And technically he was editing in his head at that time too. So I don't think he shot a lot of things he didn't need. Like he knew what he was doing. He just knew what he was doing because of who he is. That's part of because of who he is, as we have all seen.
Right.
Well, it's interesting too, because that was a time when I feel like the 90s, the mid 90s is when the independent film scene was really being put on the pedestal that it is now become, right? Where getting Oscar contention and whatnot. But in the 80s, in the late 80s, it was still very much, if it was an indie film, maybe it would go straight to video, or maybe it would play in one theater. I feel like Sex, Lies, and Videotape was one of those movies that really broke through, where literally everybody's talking about this movie.
Yeah.
And that's a monumental thing for sure.
Yeah. It was a major shift, from the legacy of the 70s and John Cassavetes and that sort of movement of the more independent storytelling, and then sort of very much in a studio system after that, and then another emergence of the independent film.
It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. And you've been in so many movies where you've been surrounded by so many terrific actors. Not just one, carrying the whole movie, so to speak, but so many ensemble pieces.
Yes.
Is that purely coincidence, or is that something that you strategically look for when you're picking a movie out?
I think it was lucky that I was cast. Some of it's that, and also what I was attracted to. I really love being in an ensemble. There's nothing more fun.
Right.
So a little bit of both, I think. A little bit of luck and a little bit of what I was attracted to.
Yeah, it's just such I know I jumped the gun talking about Pretty Woman, but you think about that shift of like, okay, Sex, Lies, and Videotape, by today's standards, not very controversial. I guess in 1989, it's a whole other animal. But then you move over to Pretty Woman, which I guess on paper could be perceived as controversial, like this woman of the night and gets romanced by a millionaire. But very much not, like very much a studio film with, in some ways, cliche now. I watched it the other night with my wife, and she's like, oh, some of this stuff would not fly in today's, this woman being swept off her feet by, oh, that's a Cinderella story, so to speak, and that's some eye-rolling stuff now. But at the heart of it, it's such a sweet film. It has such a charm. It still has such a charm. It still holds up in many degrees. Not talking about King of Wishful Thinking, Dustin, by Go West, which is the opening song to the movie. So
I'm not I'm not a fan of that particular Go West song, Laura. The King of Wishful Thinking, which you might, not feel one way or the other about, but it sort of opens Pretty Woman.
I haven't really seen Pretty Woman since 1990
What?
when I snuck into a theater.
Okay, now we're talking.
Test audience. So I can't really speak to the opening music
Ah.
because I don't
No.
remember.
They probably changed it
That's-
last minute.
That's
wait, hold on.
phenomenal. Yeah,
So
we
you
gotta backtrack into this. Do you not see your work? Period.
Not a lot. No. That's not what I like to do. No. Yeah, I haven't seen that since I think Gary or someone from his office called me one day and said, "Hey, we're doing a test screening tonight. Would you like to sneak in and watch it with an audience?" And that's the last time I've seen it. That's it.
And how was that night?
I think it went pretty well, as I recall. I think it went pretty well.
How was it for you though? Did you enjoy it? Oh,
Yeah, I think I did.
Okay.
I think I did. Yeah, I did. Usually I can watch something once and that's really it.
Yeah.
And usually it's at a
Yeah.
screening of some kind, a premiere of some kind. And then that's kind of like, okay, I want to see what everybody has done. And I'm really happy to do that. And I want to see what the director and editor and everybody has done. But then I just don't want to sit there and watch myself too much.
right. I think it would be an interesting psychological experiment if you started a podcast solely to revisit your own movies and then recorded your reaction in real time.
Yeah. And then sort of critiqued my own work.
Yes, it's
And then
very
marveled
healthy.
at my young face. No, what I would like to do though, this is an interesting project, and I know there's something similar going around right now, but it's more for sort of entertainment. But I would like to hook actors up to lie detectors
Yep.
and ask them questions or show them pictures of really prominent things in pieces they've done and see if they still carry the emotional reaction
Interesting.
of the piece. There was a piece that I did that where there was this danger that was connected to a city and the name of the city. And for over a year, whenever I heard the name of that city, my heart would start to race.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, my gosh, this is so amazing. And I know that there have been experiments where they've hooked actors up to various detection equipment to see how their brain changes and their empathy and their emotions move very quickly and are very facile.
Yep.
But how many things stay with one for a really long time.
Yeah.
There was a moment in Saving Grace where we talked about, it was spoken about, a picture of Holly's character after the Oklahoma bombing carrying a child out of the building. And I had the image of this picture in my head that imprinted so strongly that when there was some anniversary of the bombing and I immediately flashed to that picture and went, oh no, I made that up. I made that up in my head. That's not a real picture from the Oklahoma bombing. And so these things really take hold. One puts so much weight and so much of oneself into it sometimes that it can really imprint your emotions.
It's like you're giving yourself the Mandela effect in some weird way where you're like, I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's where you've convinced yourself so well that something happened that you believe it, but it's not really real.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of our job, is that we're supposed to convince ourselves so that in that moment, you can be as human, you can have as human a reaction as possible so people can react to it. So people can feel it themselves and see themselves in, I mean, that's the whole purpose, right? So not to get too heady about this, but this is the
please.
like really juicy. This is the really juicy, fun part.
Yeah, this is what we love.
The goosebumps part of it all. So it's
That's
interesting.
wild. So you had this moment where you realized, okay, no, that wasn't a real moment that happened for me. It was.
That wasn't a real moment that happened in the world
At all.
I had just pictured it because it was so important to the story and so much a part of my foundational work that I did on that series that it just became part of my file folder of the Oklahoma bombing.
Were you able to let go after that? Were you able, once you?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like these things, I would say, negatively, psychologically impact my everyday life. But it's just interesting that flash, just like any kind of really poignant memory might come up as you're driving around and listening to the news, and they might be talking about, and part of my memories of the Oklahoma bombing are my real ones. But that is one that is very prominent, and it is just one that I made up for.
Wow, that's a trip.
It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, yeah. And on that series, you play Holly Hunter's sister, right? And
friend, yes, friend.
Friend. Sorry, you played her sister in Once Around.
Yes.
Which is a trip because you made that movie in the 90s, and then here you are flashing forward decades later, and you're working with her again.
I know. Isn't that great?
Was there a moment where you're like, oh, wait, we did this thing? Or you always, did you have any playful moments on set of Saving Grace of like, oh, from Once Around?
Yeah, I think that we reflected back on it a lot, that we had, that many years had passed and many things had happened to us and all the glory of time passing. And here we are again. And it's a really unique experience to work with Holly. It's really seamless. It was really seamless for us. We would float in and out of scenes so seamlessly, and it was lovely.
A younger audience doesn't understand that the power horse that you are, the power horse that Holly Hunter is, the pedigree, the resume, sincerely, and not to like toot your horn or anything, but we hold you in that echelon of actors who, when you see a performance on screen of yours, it's so compelling and you want to watch more. I'm watching Pretty Woman again last night, and to be completely honest, it was the first time I've ever seen it from beginning to end. And so it was a trip to see you're in like, I think 3 or 4 scenes in the movie total, but your performance stands out so much. Yours and Hector Elizondo, to be honest with you, that guy can do no wrong in my book. It's when you take a role that may not be the lead, but you make it so important, and you did that in Pretty Woman. I know you haven't seen it since that test screening, but I'm here to tell you right now, like sincerely, and Dustin and I were sharing this, through text. We're like, no, you guys are like the highlights of that movie.
Oh, that's so sweet. Yeah. Thank you so much. It was fun. It was really beautiful and fun to work on. And, Gary was an amazing director, and people loved him. And he was very fun and joyful. And that's what he wanted to make. He wanted to make fun and joy. And so it was always a pleasure to be around him for everybody.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Obvious. Did he give you a lot of freedom? I mean, I know you don't remember it, but at one point, you're in the lobby of the hotel and you're putting your forehead down on the counter and just kind of blowing on it. Like, is that?
Yeah. Like a kid, like it was like a kid when they do that against the window.
Yes.
Like, that's what I was doing.
Yes.
$50, Grandpa. For 75, the wife can watch.
And yeah, I mean, I just did it, I just did that thing. I don't know what I was, the height of the thing was so perfect. And I kind of remember just going up and over, and then you just make the thing, you just make the fog, and then you talk to people, and like
It's adorable.
that. So yeah, he gave us a lot of freedom, and he also gave us, he gave the amazing direction, say something like it's Cinderella, say something about how it's, so, and then he would just go, and now, okay, rolling. And then that would be it. And you'd have to move really quickly.
Wow.
Think really quickly, play really quickly. But the more that people like Gary, like the more he wants you to play and be funny. So the easier it is to play and be funny, right?
Right.
Because he's not worried. So you're not worried. So you lean on the counter and make the little air thing, the fog. So you do that.
My wife says to me, she's like, you can't breathe on a countertop now in 2023. You can't do that.
Right.
Deadly.
Right. And that movie came out in 1990. Another film that also came out in 1990 was Quigley Down Under. So that was a big year for you. And Quigley is like a fan favorite. It's one of those movies that like the people that know it love it, and it's either you know it and you love it or you don't know it. And that movie starred Tom Selleck and you as Crazy Cora. And to me, that's one of those movies. I just rewatched it, and it almost comes off initially kind of goofy because it has like a lot of like horns, and it's like like it's comedy, but then it's some of the darkest stuff you could ever experience. Oof. Like dark, jarringly dark, I would say.
Yeah.
And there's it's like, oh, that's Crazy Cora, but no, Crazy Cora has a really dramatic past.
Yep.
Really traumatic things have happened, and now we are essentially saving Aborigines from being just slaughtered and mass genocide. How was that film for you?
Well, it was, a really big jumble of stuff, right?
Yes.
And I really loved that character, so I really wanted to do that movie, and sort of see the world. Quite amazing. And I was very lucky that I got to do it. Tom is such a great guy and such a gentleman. And working with Alan Rickman was just lovely. All the cast really were pretty amazing. And it was an adventure to be in the middle of the desert. Tricky, really tricky all the time. And a little bit scary sometimes. And I wasn't happy that the children were working as long as I was.
Oh.
That was really hard. And there weren't any child labor laws in that part of the country at the time, but they were receiving a lot of medical care and things like that. And so they were, production was saying, that's compensating for whatever you're feeling. Remember that they're getting a lot of attention, and a lot of the Aborigines that performed in the movie were performers. So, they were, somewhat hip to what was going on, but there was still a really amazing atmosphere of otherworldliness, kind of a bit of majestic presence about them, really connected to the earth and the land. So it was, tricky. It was tricky.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was a bunch of tricky things, but I feel like I wanted to do that part, and it was important to me for some reason. It really touched me. So it was really fun to do in that way.
Yeah, it's a great performance. It's interesting you bring that up because, they make such a big point of saying like no animals were harmed in the making of this movie. But the children,
You never see that in a movie, by the way. No children were harmed or neglected in the making of
No
this
children worked many hours and were, yeah.
Oh,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
That's one of those things, people talk about, do you have regrets? Or, people say, no, I have no regrets. And I think, well, yeah, I wasn't always as smart as I am now. I wasn't always as self-possessed as I am now. I made mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes.
Yeah.
And that's how we learn in life. And
Totally.
it's okay to make mistakes and experience life. It's the only way we can get through this. Can't be, wisdom of 50 or 60 at, 20 something.
Yeah.
But, that was hard for me to take. So I think about that, and I think about what could I have done in that situation to help? What could I have done to help? That's what I try to think about when I think about regrets like that. What could I have done to help myself or someone else? It's really like, I kind of didn't understand and I kind of didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
That's a situation we all get into, and that's a moment of regret. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do here. I'm making a bad mistake, but I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Well, it's a tricky position to be in too.
Yeah, sure.
It is.
Sure. You want to serve the production always.
It is. You can't suddenly be an ambassador for the environment. I mean, you can certainly try but in the moment, it's like, what could you do? You're going to stop production and be like, whoa, this is, I'm putting my foot down and we are getting some people in here to make changes. Yeah, right.
And I hate to, reveal something so maybe not great about a movie that people love, but there is ongoing Aboriginal injustice going on in Australia. So I think that I don't want to burst the movie magic because I know that people love that movie. And when I saw it, I thought it was beautiful too. But it's also an important thing. Sometimes we run into these things when we travel the world at certain times of life.
Totally.
Yeah. Glad you brought it up. Honestly, I appreciate you talking about it.
Well, I think that's the thing too, that there's this, the more aware we are becoming of the world constantly, daily, minute by minute in some respects, you reflect back on these movies, these films, and you go, okay, this didn't age well, or this, this isn't, you have to take it within the context. It doesn't take away from your love of it, but also in the back of your mind going, no, this is still going on, and this is something to think about. And it's almost like if you love this movie so much, maybe take a little bit more insight into what's going on and maybe be a world changer versus, just sitting and hitting a like button or whatever.
Right.
Which we're all accustomed to at some point. We've all been there in some degree. But I was thinking about, Dustin and I didn't get an opportunity to see this movie, but you did a TV film soon after called For Their Own Good with Elizabeth Perkins, right?
Yes.
Based on a true story.
Speaking of horrible injustices and getting yourself in an emotional place.
Yeah. Like a very clearly an important film.
Yes. So amazing a story, right?
Yeah.
That these women were forced to have sterilization by the company they worked for. I mean, you can't believe that this happened in our lifetime.
Yes.
Right?
No.
It was so odd. Such an odd, amazing thing that could happen. We think that, I haven't thought about that in a really long time. And it's just amazing.
Well, it's not something to definitely not be forgotten about because the fact that it happened in the light, there have been horrible stories of things that happen when no one's looking or no one's talking about it. Forced sterilizations. It happens a lot, unfortunately, on indigenous reservations. and people in government and power are responsible for that. But for this to happen and sign off on kind of thing, it's a crazy story. It's a crazy story, and definitely one that should be revisited.
Yeah. Really just bizarre and odd. I can't believe that it happened. But this is what happens. And these are why we keep fighting for women's rights.
Absolutely. Did you portray a real life person in that? You were portraying the
lawyer that represented the women, I think.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So did you meet with that lawyer or anything?
No, I don't. I don't think that we had contact with any of the people, but I think there were some news stories. I think I remember watching or reading some of the actual story. Yeah.
Yeah, crazy. It's insane. It's an insane story. I saw the trailer and I'm like, this isn't real. This isn't
right.
No, I think that's the point I'm also trying to make too, is I'm so glad that is a movie that was made. Right.
Yeah.
Because these are the films that need to be made, even if they're hard to watch, tough subjects to deal with. It's important that these are out there. So it gives an audience who might not pay attention to something like this, open their minds and go, holy crap, I got to look into this. What can I do to make sure this doesn't happen to people around me? So I don't know. It's good stuff. But you made a transition to television soon after, in the mid 90s, I guess. But you got into voice acting with Gargoyles. I did
some. I did the Gargoyles.
How was that for you?
Great.
It was so interesting because these guys men and women that I worked with on Gargoyles, I mean, these voice actors are amazing what they can do with their presence and their voice. Yeah. It was really a lesson for me. There was no way I could do what they were doing. It was just so impressive. And they were very lovely to me. And I was stepping in, and I think I was very pregnant at the time that I was doing that. So
oh gosh,
it was super fun.
It gave you an opportunity to sit down on and work.
Yeah, really.
Yes.
Wheeling a chair and a pillow.
Yes.
Right. Gargoyles, I think, is one of those television series that still holds up today. And it's one of those shows that it's very popular for young people, but it's also popular for an older audience too. It doesn't talk down to its audience and make you feel like you're watching a quote unquote kids cartoon. And it's kind of gotten a resurgence within the past few years, I guess. So the popularity continues to this day, and it's on Disney Plus, and people can revisit it and your role and the whole series itself.
Cool.
So I'm glad you were able to do that, and thank you for doing it, because
she's like, I'm not going to watch it. I'm not going to watch it, but thank you, Zach.
Yes. No, you don't. You don't watch it. But No, we could literally talk to you all day about every single one of your roles. We better watch what we say.
Oh no, there he is.
You just can't get enough of us.
Prodigal son has come home.
It's not about enough of you. I have to stop you and make sure you're treating her right.
We're definitely not. We're definitely not.
Let me ask you a question. It's in two parts. First part, is she a delight?
Yes.
Wait, you want us to answer that now, or do you want to ask both parts?
In unison.
Second part is she giving you insightful and interesting answers to your very good questions?
Well, you have to listen to the episode, I guess. We know Laura won't be. So that's.
Yeah. Did you see Laura's body language? She suddenly she turned her chair around. She picked up a couch.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I just came to say hi. Hello.
Hello.
Boy.
Hey.
What else was I going to ask you?
Yeah, here's your opportunity to ask us anything you want.
Right. It's the only time you'll get us.
I just want to make sure you tell them how you got the job on Barry. Make sure that story's in here.
Wait, did you read our mind? Because that was going to be my next question. Laura, how did you get the job on Barry?
Amazing.
Well, I had some excellent coaching from my husband, Matt. He likes to take credit, for that job because I did audition for that, and he did, you know, we're all doing our self-tapes with
Yeah.
if you're lucky enough to have a partner in your life to do your auditions with. So he did do some coaching and some directing of me in that audition, and he likes to take credit for that.
I give him credit.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, Laura, you coming on our show would not have happened, obviously, without Matt. But I think it's pretty obvious, and I think we have to give him credit. It would not have happened if it wasn't for John Philbin, too. John's like, I don't get enough credit for, yeah, I got you, Matt. I got you your favorite interview. I got you that. So, you know, John deserves credit as well, and he just got married, and we're happy for him.
Shout
too.
out to John. Beautiful wedding.
Yep.
Yes, we're so happy for him.
But we're happy that you're on our show. That's what matters the most. Thank you so much for giving so much of your time up for us, to us.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. So
I
great
will
having
shout out Wheels for Humanity again for
Yes,
you,
of
because
course.
that definitely needs to be shouted out. There's
Thank
links
you.
in the show notes, blah, 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 blah. Check that out. It's a pleasure, an honor. And I'm not blowing smoke when I say
He's not.
sincerely.
He's not.
Like, you are,
Nice.
I know you probably hear it all the time, but just coming from us, like, we hold you at that high echelon. You are tremendous.
Thank you.
And a tremendous human being, too.
Thank you guys so much. Have a great day. Be well.